Welcome to Call to Create, a safe place for artists who love and live for Jesus Christ to share and find encouragement. I'm your host, Vaughn Lester, and today we're joined by Danielle Scott.
Hi.
So Danielle, you have created an amazing company that is totally a new adventure for you.
Oh, yes.
It's a complete departure from what you had been doing in life. And okay, so that journey from what you had been doing, which you were working in.
Yeah, I was a kitchen and bath designer. So I'm a certified kitchen and bath designer. And so I worked for a design to build firm for 17 years.
My goodness.
And about 6 years ago, the Lord took me on a whole different path.
Wow. And it's so interesting because that was frightening and even humbling?
Yes, definitely.
Wow.
It was a complete turn that I wasn't even expecting. And so it was an ending. It all began with a prayer. I wasn't happy where I was. Mm-hmm. It was a hostile work environment. My son was getting older. Mm-hmm. He is high functioning autistic. And so he takes a lot of structure, care, schedules, things like that. So it was a period to where I went to my husband and I said, could I stay home? He was like, we're reducing down to a one income household.
Right.
I don't know. And so I just went to my knees and I said, Lord, help me in this situation. Take me out if that's where I'm supposed to leave, or make things better at work, because the anxiety and the depression was it was too much. I couldn't handle it anymore.
Right.
And so it would take away from me being able to take care of my family. And so it just came so much more. And my son started getting pushed towards the back seat because work and everything came in front. And the Lord answered that prayer. And the only way that he knew that I would be able to respond to it. And because I could never find the courage to actually go quit. I've been in this company for so long. Wow. I was running the company, and it was out of the blue, out of nowhere.
Wow.
I was fired.
No way.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
With no reason, explanation, anything. Wow. He just basically said, we're reducing and we no longer have a position for you. Wow. You need to go. And that was when it ended. And so at the time, it didn't feel like an answered prayer.
Right. I mean, it's like God just kicked you out of the nest.
Yes. It felt like destruction. And what did I do wrong? I even Googled, did I pray to God wrong?
Right, because you have all those doubts and questions.
Yes. So he had to shape me, reform me, refine me, and do all these things for me to realize, this is him moving me. Mm-hmm. This is him guiding me, answering the prayer that I asked. And it led to this,
Wow. So what looked like destruction ended up being an entirely new beginning to something that it's not a toxic work environment.
Right. At all.
You're not suffering daily, emotionally and mentally and physically. And if anything, I would guess you're enjoying the peace of knowing you're in the center of God's will.
Yes.
Even though it took a really harsh kick out the door.
It did. And looking back, that was the only way I would have left. I don't think I would have left. Mm-hmm. And the Lord, of course, knew that.
Yeah.
And so this was the way. So sometimes, when your parent punishes you, it's hard to take, but later you thank them for that. Right. You thank them for doing that because you would have never done it on your own.
That's true.
And so it's opened up a freedom in our family. I volunteer at my son's school. I'm part of school site council. Wow. Everything he needs, I'm there, on top of starting my own business, on top of, service at the church, everything that I would not have been able to do if I still work there.
That's amazing. And it's interesting because you went from a job where you were already being creative.
Yes.
To a new adventure, really.
Yes.
Where it's still creativity, but it's in a very different way than what you were doing before.
So different. Yeah.
Wow.
So it was the construction industry, now into the food industry.
Totally different beasts.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just got flipped right around. It just turned in a circle. And I was like, okay, we're heading this way now.
That's incredible. So that journey. Well, first, I guess we should share with our viewers the name of your company, because I've been lucky enough to try a number of the jams and jellies and the bacon jam, and they're phenomenal. But our viewers don't even know where to go to find the goodness.
Yes. So my business is called Scott Sweet and Savory. My focus has been mainly on jams and jellies. I actually had to learn how to bake. So I'm just learning how to do that. So I'm starting to experience a lot with breads and cakes and pastries and different things like that. And just coming up with new creations and just the newfound way. So right now I'm on Facebook. So you can find me at Scott Sweet and Savory on Facebook. And same with Instagram. Still working on a website. So if anybody knows how to do websites, site designing, anything, and then willing to teach me how to run it and update it, I'm so open. Please let me know.
That's the beautiful thing, because you stepped out of an environment that you were accustomed to, and a job you were, aside from the toxic environment, you knew and you were great at.
In and out. I knew the business completely.
And so to go from that to something new, and still you're like, teach me how to do a website. I love that there's this willingness to learn, because that willingness to learn, I think, is one of the ways God helps us grow. And in a way, gives us new opportunities to grow closer to him, because when we're humble enough to go, I don't know.
Right.
You know, and I do that a lot. It's laughable how much I'm just like, I don't know. So now, how do you feel like your art in creating these wonderful new jams, jellies, and whatnot, how does it allow you to express your faith?
Well, I always go to what his promises are. Because too many times, well, I guess it was me that thought it. Once you become a Christian, everything's going to be grand and great. It's easy now. And so I've been told, you know, by people in the church and stuff, you know, oh, God's got your back. You can do anything, which is true. But also there's work into it. It's partnership. It's a relationship. And it has to be a trust that has to be on there. Otherwise, I won't move or do anything. And so for me to be able to lean on him and follow his ways, I need to know who he is. And the only way to get to know who he is and build that relationship to where I trust him with my whole entire life, not just a business, like my whole life, I have to turn to the Bible. I have to turn to his word, because that's where he clearly spells it out for you. And he gives you his promises, and he gives you these things. And so when I'm facing something that I have no idea what to do, I do know he is good. I do know he is faithful. And so I constantly turn to his word to remind myself of these promises. And that's what grows my faith. That's what keeps me walking in. When he's saying, go this way, myself, Danielle, would say, no, thank you.
Because we're like, I know what I want.
That's right.
You know, I know what I'm used to. Let me do, you know.
But knowing who he is, when he says go this way, I know it's good. I know it's right. I know it's going to be for my best and his glory. He will never lead me in a place to say, gotcha, you know? And so why doubt it?
Well, and it's interesting too, because one of the things I love about your testimony, even of getting out of the job you were in and trusting him with this new adventure. You chose his will instead of yours. Because you could have easily said, well, I have 17 years of experience. I'm going to go back to the industry I know. Because I know what I'm doing, you know, as opposed to, okay, God, I'm trusting your will. I'm going to follow what you're asking me to do. I'm putting my will aside to do what you're asking me to do, even though I totally terrified.
That's right.
I mean, I don't know if you were terrified.
Oh, yes, I was.
I would have been too.
I was. I didn't know what to do. I was in a point where I was asking him, where do I go now? I did feel like I lost value as a contributing partner with my husband, because I was no longer making an income. I was now his dependent. I felt guilt and shame that I lost my job over that. And so I loved it that I got to be the mom I wanted to be, but also I've worked most of my adult life, and to not have a job, I didn't know what to do with myself anymore.
Right.
I didn't know where I was good, where I was worth, where do I turn?
Right.
And so it came to that point to where, what do I do now, Lord?
Yeah.
I need you to show me, what do I do now? Because I'm lost. I don't know where to go.
Right. And that is, and it's neat because God does take us through those places where we lose things.
Yeah.
And I do understand what it's like to, be like, okay, my job is gone through no fault of my own. This is gone. That is gone. Where is my worth?
Yes.
And it's terrifying, but it's so freeing to go, my worth just has to be in Jesus.
Yes.
That's it.
Yep.
And it's scary because how do you explain that to the world?
Right.
You're
right.
At the same time, I would almost bet that you are far happier now.
You have no idea. I finally know what peace feels like. I finally know what true freedom is.
Oh my God.
I've never lived in freedom. I've never lived in true contentment, peace. I'm not afraid. Before, I would work so hard because I was afraid that we wouldn't, make this bill or whatever it was. And I don't feel that way like I did whenever I was trying to do everything on my own.
Right.
I wasn't relying on him in anything of my life. It wasn't until I had to fully surrender at his feet and say, okay, I'm done. I give it back to you, And so now I tell my kids, do you want to do it the hard way or do you want to do it God's way?
It's so true.
Pick.
Oh my goodness.
And so they're like, okay, God's way. And go, okay, let's pray. This is how we do it. This is where we go. Because he answers.
Right.
Because he's real. Because he's alive.
Yep.
He's just not a tradition or people just say, oh, thank you, God, whatever. Right. But are they really thanking him? And so it's so important for me to teach my children and my husband, he's real.
Right.
He responds and, he knows us and he's the only one that knows the beginning and the end. So why wouldn't we ask him what to do? Why would we say, we got it, God?
Right.
I'll take it from here.
It's so true. It's so true. And it's neat because God is, I've heard it said, and I think it's true. God is a gentleman. He knows what's best for us.
Yep.
And he'll lead us to it. He'll tell us, but he's not going to force us to take it.
No, he won't. No, he won't.
And the tough thing, so even when, you lost your job or you didn't really lose your job so much as they made a poor decision.
Yep.
You could have still rejected God's will. You could have, gone into the same industry. You could have been bitter towards God, angry towards God, but you didn't.
No.
You said, all right, God, let's just do this.
I leaned in harder.
Yeah.
I said, I'm your responsibility now.
Yeah.
I need you to take care of me. You promised it.
He did.
So
yeah. And
I need you to keep to your promise. And that's what I lean on every day.
That's amazing.
He keeps to his promises.
And that's something that's really important when anytime we're going through something tough, right? Everything could be going wrong.
Yeah.
Everyone could ditch us, but God is still there.
He's always there.
He is.
Yeah.
And that is one of the greatest comforts.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very comforting.
That's amazing though. So really, it's your testimony is evidenced in what you're making.
Yeah, it is. It's my faith and trust in him that keeps pushing me along when creating different recipes. And, it's been trial and error with the baking, but he's there every step of the way. And when I fail at something, I have now come to understand it's not a failure. It was a teaching moment because again, just because he's leaning, I'm leaning on him and he's teaching me and he's guiding me. There's still teaching moments. I still have to learn how to do it. It's just not a snap of a finger.
Right.
I can do it all of a sudden.
Exactly.
I'm a pro. It's not. He has to teach me how to do it so I can become a pro. And so in those failures, I can now look at it as teach me, and that's my prayer every time something goes wrong. And I'll say, what did I miss, Lord? Teach me in this because I want to fix it and I don't want it to happen again.
Right. Exactly. And when we're humble enough to just keep going back to him going, I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Which I think he loves.
Yeah.
Because he knows we don't know it all. He's the only one who knows it all,
That's right.
When we're just going, okay, God, I'm putting aside my pride and admitting I have so much to learn.
Yeah, I do.
And I mean, so what do you learn about God when you're creating new recipes?
Big thing is, again, trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
They're not failures. It's teaching moments. And, you know, I know I told you once before about the not banana, I'm sorry, the blueberry lemon loaves that I was making.
Right.
And so when I got this huge order, and I was so excited, and I was like, oh yeah, I can make this. And so I just got this bright idea that I would make the batter the night before. And when I made the batter, everything, you know, called for room temperature eggs, room temperature butter, you know, it called for everything room temperature. So I made it all up, you know, made 9 batches of room temperature, you know, bread batter. And then I sealed it in an airtight container, and I stuck it in the refrigerator, and I went to bed. I got up 5 o'clock the next morning and just thought, I'm going to spend all day baking. And I did. It took 8 hours.
Right.
And after 8 hours, I had actually 10 loaves of bread sitting there that didn't rise. They were completely dense, thick, hard.
Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't believe it. I don't know what went wrong. And I had them just all stacked up on my counter, and I walked into my living room and literally fell to my knees and cried.
Right.
I just thought, I can't do this. I don't know what happened. And so I just started crying. I had to lay on the couch for a half hour.
Right. Just like
I had to
and
regather myself, because I knew this order was due the next morning. So it had to be done today, you know, that day. And so as I was laying there on the couch, I just asked the Lord, what did I do wrong?
Right.
How did I mess this up? And then how do I fix it? Because I don't know what to do. And so I just kept going over in my head all the ingredients, every step that I took. And then he just started highlighting the words every single time I started going over the recipe. And it would be sugar, you know, and I'd go down, and then it said room temperature butter, room temperature eggs. And well, I mixed it all, stuck it in the refrigerator. So I had cold batter, cold butter, cold eggs, stuck into a 350 degree oven.
Right.
And so it couldn't rise. Everything was, so it remelted the butter inside the batter, and it just made it dense, and it just wasn't good. And, but he showed me where I went wrong. He taught me, like, this is where it happened.
Right.
And so I was able to get up. I had to go back to the store, buy all my ingredients back again.
No.
And I spent, you know, the rest of the night, you know, making that batter and making those breads, and they turned out perfect. They were perfect. By the next morning, I mean, I was putting the finishing touches on. A few hours later, they needed to get to the location they were going, and I showed up, and they were so impressed. I mean, they were raving, these are so beautiful. These are for gifts. You know, this was like so beautiful and wonderful. And I was just like, oh yeah, no problem. But as I was walking away, I was like, thank you, Lord.
Like, I want a week's worth of sleep.
Yes. But I thanked him for teaching me.
Right.
I thanked him for showing me how to fix it.
Right.
You know, and not giving up.
Yeah.
And so it strengthened me.
Yeah.
And it helped me realize, you know, he's my baking instructor.
Right.
You know,
right.
I'm learning from the teacher, and he's teaching me, and he's faithful in all of that. And so it's helped me to keep moving forward.
And it's so neat because, you know, I know some people are afraid of God's correction.
Yes.
But he's so gentle with us.
If
we are willing to go to him as soon as we even sense something is wrong, or when we realize I can't work with these loaves.
Right.
He is so faithful to go, I know, I'm here. I'll tell you what happened.
Right.
He's always so honest, so real, and so just gentle with us.
Yeah. He was so gentle. That. Yeah. He was. Because even whenever my husband got home from
when you first left the other job, you know, that you were concerned, like, how am I going to contribute? How is my husband going to see me? And he's been supportive.
Oh, yeah.
So wonderfully supportive.
Yep.
And putting all those fears, because I mean, those are natural.
Yeah.
Fears, like, I'm a contributor.
Yep.
I'm a boss lady. I've got this.
Yes.
And then to go, I don't have what am I going to do now? How's this going to change things? And he's been so supportive.
He really has.
That's
He's been super supportive. He's my number one cheerleader.
That's
Is it
the
called
best.
cheerleader or cheerman?
I don't know, but he's got your back.
He
you
does.
know? He's in your corner.
He does. He always just kind of stays in the background and whatever you need, and he's just been helping, promote me and push me forward, which is so crazy because I'm such an introvert. I'm just like, oh, and so he's been pushing me out in the front and just like, you got this.
Wow.
I go, okay. All right, we can.
What a beautiful thing too, because it shows you how God speaks to both parties in a marriage.
Yep.
And really use his will to encourage you.
Yes.
Just, so beautifully.
Oh, this has strengthened our marriage for sure.
So cool.
It has, because before, like I said, I felt like now one of his dependents.
Mm-hmm.
And Will doesn't treat me that way. But through this journey has showed me we're partners. We truly are partners. I'm not just his dependent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has really strengthened our relationship and how we always cheer each other on and take. And so he's just been shouting the loudest for me. And so it's been so cool.
And it's great teamwork. I mean, you what better supporters could you have? Your husband, God, like it's just that's awesome.
Yeah, it is. So. It's been really beautiful. And so my faith in him and in the Lord has just been growing so much deeper, and just knowing who he is has opened my mind and my eyes and my heart so much wider than it was before.
That's amazing.
And so I just see him moving in everything that we do.
And do you feel like if he had not called you into this new adventure, this new creative life, do you feel like you would have learned those lessons earlier, or would it have?
Because I wasn't willing to surrender to him.
Yeah.
I felt like I had everything under control, and I was in the most depressive state, in the most angry and awful, hostile work environment. And I thought I had everything together.
Right.
So
we do that to ourselves.
It wasn't until I truly started to get to know who God is and who he is in my life was when I realized, oh, this is so much better. This is so much better than what I thought was wonderful. I had no idea what wonderful was.
And you'd never go back to it, I bet.
No.
Yeah.
I would never go back to it. I would never go back to it. And I've been offered, there have been people that have found me because of my designs and everything that I've done, and found me and said, will you come just for this one remodel, or will you do this? And I don't even want to say yes. I just say, I don't do that anymore,
Wow.
And and it feels good to say no. I don't want to go back to that old life, because it's not just doing the old job. It's the old life that I was ready to walk away from.
Well, and the neat thing is too, it shows people that as a true follower of Christ, you don't care. They could offer you all the money in the world. But you're like, God has called me to something new. And it doesn't matter what you offer me.
That's
if
right.
God doesn't okay it, I'm not going to do it.
That's right.
And that in itself takes, especially in this area, in this day and age, extraordinary faith to go, that money means nothing to me.
So true.
I'm going to do what Jesus called me to do and trust him. Like you said, you are God's dependent. He's got to provide for you.
I'm his kid. He has to.
Right. Exactly.
I hold him to his word, and he's faithful every single time. He has never let me down.
Well, and the neat thing is when you turn down those, the other jobs,
right,
you see him provide and bless you in ways the other job never could have.
That never would have. Never. It never did. I was sick. I was overweight. I was depressed. I couldn't take care of my family. It was horrible. And the main drive and pull there was money.
Right.
And that's why I stayed for the longest time. I was paid so well that it was hard to leave. And the Lord knew that. He knew I had to get kicked out the door. I wouldn't leave it. I wouldn't leave it.
Right.
And he knew. And that's just how wonderful to know how much he knows me. He knows me more than I know myself. And so that's just been a huge factor in my life, in my faith, because he knows me more than I know myself.
Right.
So I'm going to trust him.
Well, and the neat thing is too, when he removes something from our lives, like a job, he has so many other blessings lined up for us that we would never have
Nope.
experienced if we had stayed in that
That's right.
industry, or, you know, or there's something coming down the pipe that would have, you know, forced us to reroute our lives anyways, that he spared us from by getting us out of that job. You know,
that's right. Oh, I've been discovering and finding the things that he had waiting for me when I'm finally coming into discovery of what it was. I'm always like, oh, this is so much better than I would have thought for myself. This is so much better. I'm so happy, you know, and I don't want this feeling to ever go away.
Right.
I don't want it to go away. And so it just helps me cling even harder and even tighter, you know, to the one that created it all. You know, he's made it all. And like I said, you know, he knew the beginning, he knows the end. So why not cling to the one that already knows? He knows it all.
Right.
Why try to figure it out blind when you could just get the answer from the one that already knows? Well, and so when I'm heading into something scary or challenging, if the Lord's guiding it, it's going to work out. Right. And I just lean on that and keep pushing forward.
And even when we run into those bumps and hiccups, you still know it's like, okay, God, I'm just doing the last thing you told me to do.
That's right.
So you've got to have this figured out. Somehow you're going to get me through this.
That's right. That's so true. Goodness. That is so true.
Well, and I love that, you know, because, you know, especially in our area, there is such a unique testimony in saying there is so much more joy outside of the dollar.
Yes, there is.
There is so much more contentment without the stuff, you know, because I mean, we all know this is we live in a materialistic world, and it's finding that contentment and that freedom with something we never would have dreamed for ourselves, you know, and God just knows. He made us. He knows what will truly bless our hearts.
He does.
It's crazy, right?
Yep. It's so true. It is so true.
That's amazing. So now, what are some hurdles of discouragement you've run into, and how have you overcome them?
Well, I told you about my breads, you know, it's that. It's instead of looking at it as I failed, it's a learning process. Yes. You know, it's a learning curve. And so anytime I'm faced with that challenge, it hurts. Right. I cry. Oh, yeah. You know? So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm just learning, you know, it's not that simple. Right. It's, you know, I quickly gather myself to where I say, where did I go wrong? And help me through this, because I can't do it. And when I very first started making jams and jellies, I would just do it to give it as gifts. And to me, it was a witnessing tool to just show the love of Jesus. I would put encouraging notes in there. Aww. Or write it on a tag and then tie it around the jam or something and go give it to somebody. And just because I want people to know that they're loved, they're cared for, you know, so many people are depressed and anxiety. And I even see it in children. And just for me to say, I'm so proud of you, to see them light up, you know? And so I was like, I need to do something. So I started doing jams and jellies. I have a friend, she is a school teacher, and over the summer, she is a missionary. And so she goes and teaches English to children like in Mexico, South Korea, different places. And I know she grows and preserves a lot of her own food. And it's for her family to eat during the summer when she's gone. And she always makes the sweet jalapeno jelly for the holidays. And it was right around that time she sent me my jar. And I have always received the jar. It's my favorite, you know. But for some reason, when this one came, I just thought, I wonder if she'd teach me. I wonder if she would teach me, you know, how to make this. You know, I wonder if she would teach me how to start preserving and doing more, because I always felt so special when I received that jam. Right. And so I called her and I said, can you teach me? Because I would love to teach you. That's so sweet. I went over, she taught me, you know, and then that's when I started giving and doing all this stuff. And so people just started telling me, put a price tag on this, put a price tag on this, put a price tag on this. Yeah. Every time I would give it, put a price tag. And so I was just like, no, you know, I just do it for the love of it, you know, all this stuff. And I just kept hearing it over and over. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to start a business. Lord, are you giving me a business? You know? Right. And so it was very hard to get the licensing and the permits and the health inspections and everything for me to be able to create here in my home.
Right.
Because I can't afford brick and mortar, place. And so I had to jump through almost a year long of just hoops of licensing and everything before I can even sell a jar.
Right.
And so by the time I got all my licensing, I was registered, been published in the newspaper, to get everything that I could going. I had over 200 jam jelly sitting on my shelf and no orders, no sales.
Goodness.
And again, I dropped to my knees and I was just like, Lord, did I misunderstand?
Right.
Was I following the recommendations of man? Or was this from you? Did I just take off onto something that I thought was a good idea? Because everybody keeps telling me, or do you have something different for me? Am I supposed to walk away from this? I didn't know. Or was I trying to make money off of something I was blessing people off of? And I didn't want to step over that line either.
Right.
And so I was really worried about what I did, and Will invested a lot of money because I had no job.
Right, exactly.
So Will's invested a lot of money into me and my hobby. And so I didn't know what to do. And a couple of nights went by and I had a dream. And I have a steam juicer because that's how my friend taught me how to juice fruits and stuff to make jams and jellies. And so it was just black grapes in a steam juicer. I saw ginger root, fresh ginger root, and I saw sprigs of rosemary. And then so I woke up the next morning and I didn't say anything to my husband. I just went on about the day. The very next night, again, I was juicing black grapes. I saw fresh ginger root, sprigs of rosemary, and this time fresh black cracked pepper. And so I was like, okay. So I woke up the next morning and I told Will, I'm like, I keep having this weird dream about grapes and ginger. And he goes, I don't know, write it down. He goes, write it down. If you have this dream again, write it down. So I just went and got a spiral notebook and I wrote it down right then. Right. Because this was 2 nights I've had this dream. Right. And so I that weekend we went to Costco, and it was just our regular shopping for the month shopping trip at Costco. And in the center, in the produce area, it was this huge pallet full of black, they were called Midnight Beauty black grapes. And it was just a pallet full of these black grapes. And so I walked up to them and I started looking at them. I've never had black grapes before, so I wasn't sure. Right. And so I was just kind of looking at them and everything. And then I looked over, and then there was these big box buckets of fresh ginger root. And I was like, oh my gosh, are these black grapes? Is that ginger? And then Will comes around the corner and he says, there's a whole bunch of rosemary over here, like wrapped in bundles. He's like, do you want any of it? Do you need any of it? Like, he's just asking.
And you're just like, yeah, actually I do.
And I go, load it up.
Oh my gosh.
Load it up. And so I ran home and I steamed it. I just, everything that I wrote down from that dream, I put it together. And the next morning, it just created this beautiful, unique jelly that the flavor was just so unique. Wow. And I just couldn't believe it. It was heaven sent. Oh. It was the Lord confirming for me, I'm giving you this business. Wow. You are supposed to do this. And I'm going to help you every step of the way. And I just thanked him and praised him for it. And I was like, what else, Lord? Give me more. Right.
Like, let the ideas keep coming, please.
And I just love it because he also allows me to play around and experience too. Right. And I mess up and make prune jelly
or no-go cookies.
Yes. But when he gives me something, it's so direct, it's so clear, and it's so perfect. Wow. And I can't even keep that rosemary black grape jelly on the shelf. I have none in stock. It's gone every single time I make it. And it's just so beautiful. And so I just kept rolling with it and kept, just honing in on the skill even more, and just keep tapping into that supernatural power that I never even leaned on before. I never even considered, acknowledging before.
Right.
And he just shows up every single time. Every time he shows up.
And it's a neat thing too, because when we're in the center of his will and we're not fighting to get our way, when you trust him, it's like, okay, this job is done. I'm not going back to it. Lord, you've called me to do this. I'm going to do it. And then he speaks so clearly.
Yes.
Because I don't know. This is just my experience. I don't know if it's the same for you. When I was in my toxic work environment, he couldn't speak to me in the way he can now.
Right.
I couldn't get the sleep I needed, but that ability to actually hear clearly from him.
Right.
Because it paid well.
Yep.
I didn't want to leave it. I felt like I was doing something important to help people, because I knew what God had called me to, but it didn't pay the bills. So why would
That's true.
That's
so true.
He speaks so much more clearly, or maybe it's just because I can hear him since I'm actually already doing what he wants me to do.
Yes.
So he doesn't have to be really loud with me.
Yeah. I just wasn't listening, and I wasn't in a position or a place in my life, I think, to want to listen.
Yeah.
Because when you feel like you have everything under control,
even
though it's absolute chaos from the outside,
right.
I didn't see how chaos my life was.
Right.
I wasn't going to listen, and it was, I just had blinders on.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally felt like somebody finally flipped on the light switch. And I didn't realize how I was living in the dark for so long. I didn't realize I was living with the lights out. Mm-hmm. And then as soon as somebody just flipped that switch on, I was like, oh, I can see so much clearly. I can see, I can hear, I can feel, and I just didn't know. I didn't know. I was very blinded, and it was like I had a paper bag on my head. Wow. And nobody could tell me, that it was wrong, or because I felt like I had everything together. My kids were clothed, they were fed,
What do I need?
Right. Yeah. It was like, I have a beautiful house. We had cars, we were going on vacations. How could somebody tell me my life wasn't complete? Or my life wasn't whole,
or that it wasn't. I mean, you have everything you need. It's a good life. Why would it not be what God called you to do?
Right. Right.
So how will you encourage someone, maybe as they're listening to this podcast and they're going, I feel like I have it all together. What if God wants me to do something different? What you encourage them to go before the Lord and ask them?
That was it right there. Ask him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's huge. That was my problem. I didn't ask him. I didn't acknowledge him. And so, having that relationship with him
makes a difference.
It's so, so important. So if you just feel like, I want to change, or I need something else, go to the one that knows you more than you, that has made it all. He created everything. And so he knows what's your best. And it will be something that you can't even think of for yourself.
Right.
And whenever he gives it to you and you trust him enough to follow it, it makes perfect sense. It just comes together in harmony. Mm-hmm. And I get giddy and giggly about it whenever it happens, every single time. Cause I'm just like, man, why didn't I do this sooner? I wish I had this relationship with him so much sooner. But I also realized I had to be broken to know what it felt like to be whole. I had to be in darkness to know what it felt like to be in the light now. Yeah. And so I believe a lot of it is trust, your faith in him.
Yeah.
It's believing him when he tells you something and when he's guiding you to go somewhere. It's another thing whenever you're like, okay, I'll ask. And then he tells you to do something. You're like, I think this way will be better.
Right. Or I'll do that later.
Yes. Or put it off.
Right.
Yes, because his timing is always perfect.
Yes.
And so if he's saying do this now, that means now's the time to do it. And there are going to be hard times, but you can't look at it as failure or defeat. Right. You have to look at it as a teaching moment. It's the time where he is refining you to be better and get better. And you know, I don't really like to say perfect because we're not perfect, but in everything that we do just becomes so much better. And that's what he wants for us. He wants that, you know, for us. And to know that going in, that everything he does is because he loves us and he wants so much more for us, that should be the open door to say, okay, I'm going to take the chance and I'm going to do it. And it's been such a ride.
Wow.
It's not been boring. It's not been, you know, it's fun. It's crazy. It's been a little frightening, but it's exciting fright, you know, if that makes any sense at all. And it's in every time when I look back and say, wow, you did it, Lord. You did it. I want more. Right. And I'm going to keep going.
And it's neat because he is faithful to show up.
He's faithful to show up every single time, even whenever I don't. Even when there's even when there's times where he's told me to do something and I've been too afraid to do it, he will still wait there for me until I'm like, okay, you ready now?
Right. He does
yes,
that.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm ready now. So just don't give up.
Yes.
And if you're not ready to start making those jumps and leaps now, maybe just start with your relationship with him.
Yes.
Because how can you listen to someone you don't know
or trust?
Yeah.
And I remember you had mentioned actually one of our pastors saying, you can believe in God.
Yeah.
But do you believe God?
He said it's Pastor Damien. And ever since he said it, I think about it all the time. I just hang on to it. He said there's a difference between believing in God or believing God.
Right.
True difference.
Yes.
Yes, you can say, I believe in God. I believe there's a God. But do you believe him?
Right.
In the things that he's teaching you, in the things that he's telling you, in the things that he's providing for you. And it's a huge difference.
It is.
And whenever you're just, I believe in God versus I believe him. He said so. He said this is what it is.
And changing your life according to like, I believe he's going to show up for me.
Yep.
So I'm stepping out on this new adventure.
That's right.
You know, I believe that even when things fall apart, he has something he's going to bring out of it. There's some good that's going to come out of it.
Yeah.
Like you said, sometimes God has to break us. Not sometimes, we all have to be broken at some point. Some of us, myself included, repeatedly over and over and over again, because I'm really good at trying to put myself back together. And it's interesting because it's true. He can't use us until he's prayed over us and broken us. Because until we're broken, we're not trusting him to use us.
Right.
You know, it's
because we're no good.
Right. It's so true.
We can't do good. The Lord does good, you know, and he needs to break us from that to be able to show how good he is. Otherwise you'll miss it. Right. You'll miss every bit of it.
I mean, if you know, after losing the other job, you had done something else that felt natural. Would it have been this?
No.
See? And it's so
I probably would have started my own design business or something like that. But the Lord removed me from it so far to where I don't even desire it anymore. And it's really rare that I even in conversation identify with that part of my life anymore. I don't say, I'm a licensed kitchen and bath designer. I just say I stay-at-home mom, you know, I serve at the church, I teach 4th grade at kids club, you know. I'm baking now, I'm making jams and jellies, and then it leads into that conversation. And I never say, you know, I used to, you know, remodel and build multi-million-dollar homes.
Jeez, that's amazing. Oh my
goodness. I say I make bread.
Well, and the neat thing is, you know, and to me, one of the beautiful things about being creative with food is it's not just the creativity of, you know, making the food.
Right.
It's the fact that you're giving the recipient something to enjoy.
Yes.
On maybe it was an awful, good, bad day.
Yep.
But they got to come home, sit down with a great piece of toast and some of your jam.
Thank you.
Or, you know, or even the bacon jam, which is just phenomenal.
Yes.
You know, and that was their break. That was their escape. And it's something that actually not only gave them that mental pause, but actually nourishes them as well, which is really
That's beautiful.
neat.
Thank you.
I think
that's
what you do
encouraging what you said right there. Thank you.
Well, it's amazing.
Baking is a whole new animal to me. I've had to learn how to bake. And I finally understand that chefs belong in the kitchen,
right?
But pastry chefs belong in the bakery. I mean, same profession, two different animals.
Completely.
And with cooking, you know, I can add a little bit more of this and taste it and like, oh, it needs this. Even if something's too salty, I know I can break it with some cream. I can break it with some fat, you know, or something. With baking, it's all precision measuring. You have to weigh everything.
Oh my goodness.
You can't skip on any ingredients. Like it has to be the way it is or it's disaster.
It's true.
It just doesn't work.
Right.
Like room temperature butter and eggs. Baking is such a science.
It is.
And and science doesn't work if you don't put all the components that is needed for this product. And so it has really taught me patience.
Wow.
And it's taught me obedience.
Yep.
Because in cooking, you do what you want to do. It's your own style. It's your own taste. You know, there's a lot of things. If I don't like capers, I don't put capers in it, you know.
Thankfully, I'm so glad I'm not the only one. I can't stand. I'm like, I can't do it.
And so that's with cooking though. With baking, you can't be that way. You have to be obedient in what you do. And so it, like I said, it's just taught me how to follow the rules, be obedient, and just, you have to stick with what is going on in front of you. And that's the Lord right there, you know, just being obedient to his will and being obedient to what he's requesting for you to do is going to bake perfectly. You know, it's going to work out perfectly because you were obedient in that. And so I've learned that so much just through baking that it's the same way, you know, and so it's been challenging, but rewarding. It's been difficult, but has so many victories at the end. And so I just love every bit of it. I just keep, I want more, Lord. Show me more. Show me more.
And I love that that picture of how we follow the recipe as a baker. That requires, like you said, that obedience, because there's things that God tells us, this is what I'm telling you to do. Well, almost do it. You can't do that in baking.
Nope, you can't.
Like you said, if you have cold butter and you're making bread and it says room temperature. It's like, okay, God, well, I mostly did it. I kind of substituted.
That's right.
And you can't.
I cut corners. I thought it would be easier.
Right.
You know, I thought I was smarter.
So true. But this is the short way, God.
Yes.
No, you have to go the long way sometimes.
You got to go the long way.
Yep.
And like, he's just taught me all of that, you know, and I just love him so much for it.
Yes.
I just love him so much for it. He shows up.
He does.
And I just love him.
And it's neat too, because it takes the willingness to be teachable, like we learned about the other day, and saying, okay, Lord, you asked me to do this. I don't know that I totally agree with the way you want me to do this, but you're asking me to, so I'm going to do it. And then, like you said, finding out is so much better.
It's so much better.
So much better. Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love that. Now, what scripture encourages you as a creator and a baker?
All right. I had to write it down. So the first one is always Proverbs 3, 5-6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding, and in all things your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. And that one, man, I hold so true. Because there's so much I don't know why, and I don't understand why this is happening. Like getting canned from my job after 17 years. I don't know why this happened. And it wasn't until later I was like, oh, you did this, Lord. You had so much better for me. You know, he answered a prayer. I asked, take me out of this, because I knew I didn't have the ability to do it. And he does it. And he does that for me. So even when I don't understand what's going on, I know he does. And so that has been my strength to just keep going. And then the other scripture that I always, love is Philippians 4:12-13. And it says, I know how to be abased, and I know how to be abound everywhere and in everything. I have learned both to be full and both to be abound and to suffer need. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. In my personal scripture book, I write in where it says, I can do all things. I changed the word things to the word this.
Yes.
Because whatever I'm facing in this situation, good or bad, I know he will strengthen me to get through it. So whatever the circumstances are. And so when reading this, it's not like I can do all things. I can do it all, because he strengthens me to do it. Exactly. It's, I can do this because he strengthens me to get through it. Yeah. If it's something that's beautiful and encouraging and fun and good, to where it's a circumstance of losing a job and losing an income, and he has strengthened me so many times to say, you can do this. You're going to get through this. Just keep walking. Just keep going. And so I just love those two scriptures so much. And I just keep telling myself in everything, I can do this because he's with me.
Right. And those two scriptures also, I think, encapsulate in many ways what it is to be a creative.
Yes.
As someone who loves Jesus Christ and wants to use our creativity to honor him and to worship him.
Yeah.
Because we have to trust him. Like, I don't know if I'm supposed to paint this so someone will buy it, but I just want to paint something that truly honors God. I want to paint something that honors the love that I have for Christ, or bake something that honors God, and just do what he asked me to do. And we just trust him with the rest.
We do.
We can't have a game plan necessarily.
That's right.
It's his will.
That's
all
right.
The way.
It's his game plan.
It has to be, because when we try to tell
he wrote it. Let's find it.
Right. It's kind of like, to me, it's like when you have a pro football coach.
Yeah.
And a little kindergartner who's got his helmet on. He's like, no, coach, we got to do this. That's how I feel with God sometimes.
That's so true.
But I know.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you don't, honey. Oh my goodness.
That is so true. Yes. And also too, there's a lot of things you just don't understand, but he does. And so that again just falls on trusting him.
Right.
Just having the trust to know who he is, to know, okay, I don't understand why it's this way, but I know you do, and I'm going to keep going.
Well, and I think it's a beautiful testimony too, because, you mentioned the timing of everything, leaving the old job, starting on this new adventure. The neat thing to me too is your kids got to see you trust God, and they were old enough to understand what that looks like.
Yes.
If it had been sooner in life,
that's true.
They might not have been old enough to recognize this is what living looks like for God.
That is very true.
And that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Because you're equipping them, the next generation to know, I have seen what it is to live for Christ.
Yep.
It can be scary, but I know he is faithful.
That's so true. Yeah. I see it in both of my children, Allie and Ryan. And with Allie, going through college and everything, when she was leaving for UC Davis, she had no place to live.
Right.
And I still told her, still apply, we're going to keep going, and we're going to trust the Lord's going to provide a place.
Yep.
And at the very end, like it was the last month before she was leaving and she had no place to go, we found a place. I mean, I just saw it. I just saw the growth in her faith and in her trust, in her Heavenly Father right then in that moment of her saying, he did it.
Right. And it's
he did it. He came through.
Right. Because she saw with you, it's like, it's not a blind faith.
Right.
It's okay. I know God is good. Like
that's right.
I dig into the scripture. I know the character of God is revealed in the Bible. He is good. He is faithful. He has told me he is. Now I have to believe it.
Yes. You have to believe it.
And, and then seeing it evidenced in your life and seeing the support as you and Will came together as a couple to go out on this new adventure. So she was, I think, thanks to that. That legacy.
It was,
faith, you know,
it did. It did. It helped her in everything that she did. And she acknowledges that. She tells me, she's like, I just see the change, just within our family of what the Lord has done. And so she's out there. Yep. She's living that life for Christ right now. And so, we're just so proud of her.
And I'm really glad I'm not the only one. God waits till like 11:59 at night. I'm thinking, seriously, I need an answer. I really need an answer. It's like, we'll wait till about midnight and I'll tell you. It's like,
that's right.
I'm so glad I'm not the only one, because I'm a planner and he knows that.
Yes, I am a planner and an organizer and everything like that. So when things aren't going the way I think so, that's when I need to step back and say, let me know when, Lord.
Yeah, and that's tough.
It's tough. But it works out so much better when you do.
It does. It really does.
It does.
It's so funny because there's this weird, non-necessary anxiety.
Yes.
But God, I have a plan.
Uh-huh.
Can you tell me now? Versus the very real anxiety when we jump the gun, try to do it our way, and we're dealing with the consequences.
Yes, we are.
And it's like, okay, Lord, I really, really messed up. I didn't trust you, and now I'm dealing with it.
That's what I tell my son. I said, there is a consequence to every decision we make, good or bad.
Yes.
There is a consequence that we have to. And when I step in the way of my own self and trip my own self up, the Lord's still going to get me there. But I decided to walk through the mud and not the sidewalk to get there, And so I like to stay clean and get there nice and safe.
Yes. And the neat thing is, even with your kids, there's that testimony of, we never know who's watching.
That's right.
And our choices don't just bless the Lord because we're saying, I really do trust you enough to actually choose your will over mine.
That's right.
But it blesses those who are watching us.
Everyone's watching.
Yep. It's really true.
Everyone's watching.
So will you look like the world and take the easy way or not?
That's right.
And
you want to do it the hard way or God's way. It's your choice. Right. And he gives us that choice.
He does. Yeah. And he's never rude about it. He's never mean about it. Like, he never sits there and goes, I told you so. I'm very tempted to, because I'm sassy like that. But that's why I'm not God.
That's right. That is so true.
That's amazing. I love seeing that faith lived out in your life, and how it's really empowering your kids even to be trusting and more loud in their faith.
Yeah, I believe it is too.
That's awesome.
I really do.
That's really neat. So what encouragement would you offer to other cooks? Because it's like, as you know, it's scary if you feel like, I'm new to this, or I just started.
Again, it's just ask the Lord. You have to be able to know what direction that he's wanting you to go in. But also, I kind of a little bit adventurous. I'll jump out there and try something to see if it works. And then I'm like, okay, Lord, that didn't work, did it? But it was fun doing it,
Right.
So, I don't want to say, stay on the safe side of the street always, or otherwise you'll just fall in the ditch. I'm not saying that. You got to step out and you got to try things, and don't give up over defeats, because it's just a learning curve.
Yeah.
Just keep going, and know that you have him to lean on, fall back on, get advice from, and just keep growing that relationship with him, and have fun with it, experience life, experience new things, and just do what, what's your passion, it turns into something, like I told you before, I love to cook already. So I had a passion for, cooking. And I always say food is my love language. If I'm cooking for you, it's because I'm so in love with you. I want to cook for you. I want to feed you, And so it was for the Lord to bring me into jams and jellies, preserving and baking. It was just like, why didn't I want this? I had a passion for it. And so it's just so fun to see what he brings out of you if you just give it a try. And don't be too hard on yourself. You can't beat yourself up. Because he's not beating you up.
It's really true.
And so we beat ourselves up. And so we have to enjoy the ride. So it's a fun ride if you'll just jump on and go.
It's true. And not being
a stick in the mud, like, but I knew what I was doing. I knew I had this life figured out.
That's right. You can't be that way.
No, because
you got to be open.
Right. I mean, the joy of the Lord is our strength.
That's right.
And
that's right.
Especially when you're facing discouragement or you're new to something.
Yeah.
It's, just hand it to the Lord. Say, okay, Lord, I'm going to enjoy this time with you because this is time of me and God now.
Yes, it is. It truly is. It is. So I would just say keep going and trust in the Lord and enjoy it. Enjoy it and then learn from the little flip ups.
Yes.
The little mistakes. Just learn from it.
And the neat thing is, even with those mistakes, we end up laughing over it later.
Yeah.
Like
we do.
Yeah, I'll tell you later about one that I read the recipe wrong. I did. Now, how did you develop the gifts that you are currently using to honor God with creating jams and jellies? You mentioned, talking to your friend.
Yes.
And that's a great example of how God brings people into our lives for a reason.
Yes. And I had no idea too. It was just, after I asked the Lord, what now? Where do I go? What do I do? I don't know. I mean, that jelly just dropped in my hands. And I missed that it was him.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was a nice gift. And so I thought I was just like, oh, you know what? I'm going to call and ask my friend. And looking back, like you said, we see where the Lord has worked and moved into this. And so it's just the way that I'm able to just keep developing in that is keep trying and keep going and don't give up and don't turn away from it. When it gets hard, lean into it more and accept the struggle, enjoy the struggle because it's all going to come together. And I went through a Bible study through School of Ministry through Calvary Chapel. And Pastor Paul was teaching this, and he was telling us the story of Mr. Carver. I didn't know, who he was, so I was just so intrigued, to hear him. And he was this peanut farmer, and he prayed, and and would just and asked the Lord to show him all the ways to use this peanut. And so he's come up with over 300 different ways to use the peanut. And so I was so inspired by that. I was so inspired by that I went away and I didn't really realize how much I was inspired by it. It was just this line of information now that I see that the Lord was giving me was I asked the Lord, what now? I go through this, my friend giving me the jelly, and then I go through this Bible study at the same time and hear about Mr. Carver. And then all of a sudden I'm learning how to make jams and jellies, at her house that next day. And then I come into my kitchen and I was just, I want to know more, Lord. Like, this is exciting. I want to know more. And so I walked in my kitchen. I just laid my hands on my kitchen counter. And I said, I want to know more, Lord. You're the creator of all. You know what fruits and vegetables pair together. You know what spices and herbs are meant to go together. You've made it all. You've created it all. So please tell me how to put these things together. And then I was just like, make me like the peanut farmer. I love it. So I was like lifting my hands and just asking, I want to be like him. Show me how did he do it? Show me, teach me the same way. I want to go deeper. And he was faithful to do it. He just started showing up, and it just all started falling into place. And like I said, at first I did have doubtful moments of, because nothing was selling. And then so I was just like, ooh, was this you, Lord? Ooh, or was this man? And then that was when he was like, no, it's me, and started giving me recipes and started moving me forward. And then we had a tasting here at the house.
Yep.
I found out that young adults really don't eat jams and jellies. When I first started telling some of them about, jams and jellies, they're like, like Smuckers. And I go,
oh, children.
have you not had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? And I'm like, no. I guess they were a generation of top ramen or something, or cup of noodles.
Wow. These kids nowadays.
So I was like, well, I make jams and jellies. Let me share with you. And at first they were hesitant. So I told Will, I said, let's have a tasting.
Mm-hmm.
Because for me to be able to promote these unique flavors to a new generation, they need to know what it tastes like.
Right.
Because the older generation, they know. They're like, oh yeah, I make jams and jellies, or I've made it, or my grandmother or whatever. Right. They're very familiar with it. Mm-hmm. And so whenever I'm like changing these unique flavors and different things are going, it's not just your typical grape jelly. Right. I needed this generation to come in and try it. And taste it. Yes. And so as soon as I had probably 20 young adults wandering around our house.
Right. And I think that's where we actually met the first time.
Yes. That was my tasting. And so, we invited everybody over, which is so crazy because we don't really like have a bunch of people over at our house. We don't entertain, anything. So this was the first time we just opened the door to people to come into our little safe haven here.
I love that.
and to welcome them in and to try and experience these jams and jellies. And again, this was all the Lord working into that. And I think too was the Lord training me and encouraging me to be able to speak to people, be that front runner, promote myself, put myself out there, because I do hide in the background. I'd rather be behind the camera instead of in front of the camera. Right. And when everybody came, it was such a success. Yes. Everybody was just loving every jam and jelly. And at the very end, they were opening their wallets to me. And I didn't know how to accept it. I was just like, oh, you want to buy this?
Yes, it really is good. We want this.
I was like, I didn't know you want to buy it. I wasn't prepared to sell it. I just didn't know what was happening. I'm looking to Will, like, help me. No. Go sell this to them, and the Lord came with wallets open. And it was just this long struggle of, am I supposed to be selling this? Am I supposed to be doing this? Because nobody's buying, And that night, I made $490.
Oh my goodness.
So many jams and jellies went walking out of this house. Wow. We were just ecstatic. We just couldn't believe that this was happening. And that was the night that my husband stopped calling this my hobby and started calling it my business.
That's incredible.
It was that change right there, even in his mind. Right. Like, this is a business. This is her business. Mm-hmm. This is no longer her hobby.
Well, and what I love too is you got to see how food brings people together.
Yes.
Which is really neat.
And everybody's sharing, like, oh, try this one, and bringing different things. Yeah. It was fun. And it was all about jams and jellies. And I got to bring out, like, don't just put it on a piece of toast.
Right.
I made meatballs with my grape rosemary jelly.
Brilliant.
And we were putting bacon jam on little sliders and grilled cheese sandwiches.
Yum.
And then that's when bacon jam started to come about again, that we just didn't know that was going to happen. But I had some pastries, baked goods that had jams and jellies on it. And so I just want to show that jam and jelly isn't just for a piece of toast.
Right.
It really isn't. You can glaze meat with them, baked hams, pork tenderloins. So you can, take the jams and jellies outside of the bakery and take them into the kitchen to actually cook with them and put them on sandwiches and, roaster meats. Oh, the habanero, my pineapple habanero.
Oh my goodness.
If you reduce it down with a little bit of soy sauce or even just some water, if you want to, if soy sauce is too salty for you, and brush it on some chicken wings and put it in your air fryer or even throw it out on the grill. It is so good.
I never would have thought of that. That is brilliant.
Oh, it is so good. There's so many things that you can do with these jams, and that's what I want people to do. Don't just stick with putting it on your piece of toast in the morning. This can be so much more. It can elevate your dishes, especially when you're a new cook.
Yes.
And if you're learning how to do new things and you want something that little special, unique, use the pineapple habanero. It elevates chicken so much.
Yes.
It's really good on glazed chicken. My fall pear, that is super good on ham. So there's, we have, I make a Carolina Reaper. It's the hottest pepper in the world. And I steam juice peaches, Patterson peaches. And so it's pure peach juice. And I put the Carolina Reaper pepper in it and some cinnamon. It's been infused with cinnamon sticks.
Oh my goodness.
And so it's hot. It really is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. It's very hot. But my husband, he can handle heat. I don't think he has taste buds. He can eat it by the spoonful.
Sounds like my brother and his fireman friends. They're just like, the hotter, the better.
I'm telling. I have not been able to eat it or taste it. I actually have to wear goggles and a mask when I'm making it because of the steam that's coming up from the pot and the peppers. And I have to wear gloves. I can't touch the peppers. It will burn your insides.
I full on believe it.
And so I just put a little bit in there, like an eighth of a teaspoon goes in this for this flavor. And so my husband, he was like, make me something with that Reaper. So we had some ham steaks. And so we put a ham steak on the stove, and we were like, while it was sizzling and grilling and everything, I put a tablespoon of that Reaper on his ham so it would melt down and glaze the ham. And then I got some Havarti cheese, some really good melty cheese. Yeah. And then I grilled his bread with like some butter and garlic. And then I made him this grilled cheese ham and cheese sandwich with that Carolina Reaper glazed over the ham. And he ate that. He loved it so much. For dinner that night, he said, can you make me another Reaper sandwich? What? He ate it a second time that night. It is his favorite. He loves it. And so it was just so wonderful to see him eat it, just not on a piece of toast. Like it was in this melty, gooey, buttery, garlicky, sandwich that he was just like, I wish you could handle the heat, because it's something I have never experienced before. Like, this is so unique that you can't just go get this somewhere.
And it sounds like a new recipe, even, that you could tell people, like, hey, if you're not sure how to use it, make a Reaper sandwich.
Yes, make a Reaper sandwich. It just pairs so well with ham. So if you want that fiery pepper, sweet honey baked ham, put some Carolina Reaper jelly on there.
Wow. I never would have thought to do that.
Yeah. And so I've been with, making the jams and jellies. I'm also trying to figure out what are other ways that you can use this.
Right.
It's not just for a piece of toast anymore. It's so much more. With my spiced plum jelly, that one is one of my personal favorites. But again, grilled panini. And if you put, cheese on there and some green chilies and even some fried green tomatoes, and you put some of that spiced plum jelly on it. Oh, it sounds crazy, but it makes perfect sense in your mouth.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much.
It's just so good. Like, everything that I have experimented with it in dishes, in foods. And so a lot of times whenever you do order a jam or a jelly from me, not a lot of times, every time you order a jam or jelly from me, inside the box, inside the front flap of it, has a description card. So it tells you how it was made, if it was what it was infused with. It gives you the ingredients so you know what's in there. But then also I have pairings. So I say, try it with this, put it on this, try it with ham. Glaze your, chicken wings with this. Brilliant. Pour it over a block of cream cheese, do this, do that. So that way, like with my candied jalapenos, put them in some baked beans, there's just so much you can do with it. And so I just want people to try it and put it on so much more. And really experience. And you just get such a unique flavor, especially in that young adult group where they're finally getting their first place and they want everybody to come over for dinner. It sets them apart. It's so unique. And in that experience of sharing food together and enjoying, they're going to remember like, oh my gosh, this was the best
Right.
that I had. And their secret weapon was that little jar of jam.
Right.
That's their little secret,
true.
that elevated and just heightened the whole dish.
Well, and the neat thing is too, by sharing those suggestions, like
Mhm.
here's things you can pair it with, you're actually sharing the joy of creativity too.
Yes.
You're giving them an excuse
Yes.
to do something new and
Do
different.
something with it. Yeah.
Try this, try
Yep.
that, get out of the box a little bit,
Yes.
see what God will do.
That's
It's like,
right.
that's
That's
amazing.
so true. And that's through that tasting as well. I was trying to open that up to
Mhm.
see like, hey, you could put grape jelly on meatballs. It tastes
Which no
good.
one would, like, that's just incredible.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
was so good. And it just worked out so well.
That's awesome.
Everything was just so perfect. And so that's what I just keep on doing. And because I do have the love of cooking. And so it's to be able to bring in the jams and jellies
Mhm.
in the passion that I have for cooking has been so wonderful. I
That's
love it.
awesome.
I love it all.
That's fantastic. And you could not have done any of this
No.
if you'd stayed in the industry that
I
you
would
had
have.
been working
That's
in.
right.
It's literally the complete transformation of your life is what it
Yes.
sounds like.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yep. It is.
That is
It
so, and that's so God, isn't it?
It is so him.
He's like,
It
oh,
is so him.
you thought
All
you were
of it.
happy there? Let me show you this.
Yeah. Let me give you more. Let me show you more.
It's so true.
Just trust me.
And it's amazing because what we think is the absolute best in our lives, when we surrender to his will,
Right.
and we're like, okay, trusting you, I believe you.
Yep.
And then we find there is so much more.
Oh, so much more.
We had no idea.
Yep.
We couldn't have dreamed it for ourselves if we had known to.
We couldn't. It's so much better.
So much better.
What he has is so much better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us a bit about one of your favorite products. And I know you have a new product that you're very excited about. So we'd love to hear more, and to also for our listeners and viewers to know where they can order. We know you have your Facebook.
Yeah,
your
Facebook
Instagram.
and Instagram right now. And like on Facebook and Instagram, I list also pairings, so
Perfect.
I type everything up to where, I show what jam or jelly is on there, and I give suggestions.
Good.
And there's a lot of comment feeds on there asking me what would work well with this one. And so it's even started where people are sharing recipes or telling me what they put their jam or jelly on. And it's just so fun. So definitely Facebook, just look up Scott Sweet and Savory on Facebook. That's where a lot of information is on. Instagram, also Scott Sweet and Savory. That one's more just pictures, a lot of pictures on there because you can't type much on Instagram.
True.
Facebook, I can put so much more information on there. So Facebook is inundated with a lot of my stuff on there. And so, the spiced plum jelly is definitely highly recommend. And my spiked apricot, I spike it with a little bit of Jack Daniels in it and cayenne pepper. And it's just really to enhance and elevate the sweetness and a little bit of tartness in the apricot. And so that one is also definitely, I recommend, and it is good on meats too. It's great as a glaze, an apricot glaze, especially on pork. So it's really, really good. I would recommend those two. I mean, if you're into hot and spicy, the pineapple habanero is a favorite. I do make a bean cherry jalapeno. Ooh. So it just has a little zest of heat in there. I can actually handle that one. But the cherries are just, the bean cherries, they're big, juicy black cherries. They're just so sweet. And to get the little zing that your tongue is just looking for with the jalapeno is perfect. And a couple of my friends at the young adults group have told me they've used it like a barbecue sauce and have and have put it on hamburgers or have put it on steaks and have grilled it out on their grill. And they said it's just like the cherry and the jalapeno stuff. It's better than barbecue sauce. That's amazing. And so I just love that they're doing that. And currently what I've been working on is bacon jam. And I know it sounds crazy,
but it's so good.
Yes, you have to try it. It's one of those things you have to taste it to believe it.
Right.
A lot of times people are fearful with the name, like bacon and jam, because again, they're still stuck in the Smucker's stage.
Right.
Thinking Smucker's jelly with some bacon on it.
How does sweet and savory go together?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. And this was another one of those recipes that the Lord has guided me through that I just made, on my own. And there's other bacon jam recipes out there. My bacon jam recipe is changed and unique in ways. But I made bacon jam from, one of my own recipes that the Lord has been working with me on, but as just a jam for that tasting for that day when I had the young adults come over. And that was one of the jams that they were like, oh, can I buy this too? And I was like, no, you can't. It has meat in it, I can't put bacon inside this jar, And so I was in the kitchen. I had made 2 batches of bacon jam because it was going so fast.
My goodness.
And so I kept running into the kitchen making more. And it got to a point where everybody, I think even Pastor Paul was just scooping that in their bowl and just eating the bacon jam.
Yeah, no, I saw him with little slices of bread just digging in.
And it was just,
oh my goodness.
That was the only thing that they were eating. And so they were like, can I buy this? Can I buy this? And I just kept saying, no, I can't put bacon in a jar,
Right. And
so when the tasting was over, God began. And he said, yeah, you are.
Wow.
And so he, and I told him, Lord, I don't know how to separate the bacon out of this and put it in a jar. How do I just put the base in the jar? I don't know how to do that. And he just said, I'll teach you. And so and I was stubborn. I was afraid. I didn't think it would work. I thought it was craziness. And for a solid month, I would still go along with making my jams, making my jellies, the same recipes I've been making.
Right.
And the next day, they wouldn't set up. They'd just be completely watery. And I would reprocess and they wouldn't set up again. And then there was one jam that I was working on. I processed it 3 times and it wouldn't set up. And it got so bad to where I thought it was the pectin that was failing.
Wow.
So I changed pectin companies and then I changed pectin companies again.
Oh my goodness.
So I went through 3 different pectin companies because I thought that was the problem. And the problem was I wasn't listening to my Lord.
Yep.
I wasn't listening. I wasn't being obedient.
He was closing door over and over again
until I finally got it. And he refocused me and redirected me and said, I'm going to teach you how to make this bacon jam. And so after a lot of trial and error, I finally put, the jams and jellies just off to the side. He wasn't taking it away from me. He just said, just wait. And I figured it out. I figured out down to the ingredients, how much, vinegar, how much sugar, how much, maple syrup, how much everything that I needed, even with the onions, because I have to caramelize the onions and cook them, but also make them safe for canning and preserving. And so he walked me through this process and I was so scared because I don't want to give something that somebody's going to get sick, And so he helped show me how to separate out the meat part but preserve everything else. And we bought, this tester. I actually found it through Colorado University. I contacted the university because they have a preserving course class there.
How cool.
And I said, how do you test your stuff to know that it's safe for eating? And so they said, go buy this tester, and then you test it like for 1 week, 2 week, 3 week, 4 week, and so we did that. And so I would make them, we would jar them up, and I had, 1 week, 2 weeks, all the way up to 4 weeks. And we were popping those jars because we were the first that we had to try it.
Hoping and praying. Okay, Lord.
We were testing and then we were cooking it and making it. And it was just perfect. Everything. It just over and over. So now what would take 40 minutes to make a fresh batch of bacon jam, of cooking the bacon, cooking the onions, all the, mixed ingredients and everything that you need to put into it and make it, and then actually cook it on the stove. I've been able to reduce it down to where you can have bacon jam in less than about 10 to 12 minutes.
That's amazing.
So you just cook your bacon, dump in your bacon jam base. It already has your caramelized onions, all your, seasoning, spices, everything in it. And you cook it up until it becomes thick and jammy. And then, anything you would put bacon on, put it on there. It just elevates the dish. So, hamburgers, that was the first thing we started trying it on. Grilled cheese sandwiches, absolutely the best. You've never had a grilled cheese sandwich unless you've had a bacon jam grilled cheese.
Oh my goodness.
And we've even put it on waffles. We've put it on, portobello mushroom caps,
which is great for the vegans out there.
Oh yes,
I love your note on the jar. To make it vegan, just don't put bacon.
Just don't add bacon.
Brilliant.
Yes.
But you're right. Like mushrooms. Oh, that's a great idea.
So we did that actually. So we didn't use bacon. We sauteed portobello mushrooms with some olive oil on the stove, and then I poured in the bacon jam base, and we mixed it around, and it was total vegan. Everything in there was no animal byproducts at all. And it was good.
Right.
It was so good. It was sauteed mushrooms with still the spices and flavors, that you would get. You didn't really miss the bacon in it,
That's amazing.
And so it's great on vegetables, sauteed vegetables. I'm telling you, anything, scrambled eggs, breakfast burritos, anything that you want to put bacon on, this just elevates the experience of bacon. And so I actually got to put it in a jar.
That's amazing.
And so we just started. We haven't really sold it yet. We're just now starting. It's just now coming out. And I know the Lord has big things. We've been working with a trademark lawyer for the past 4 months. And I've been getting some information back. It looks like they're going to accept it. But I'm in the process of registering, the name, the product, and everything. And again, this was just a heaven sent recipe. The Lord, that he's just been so good in all of this. And as soon as I finished bacon jam and got it together, all my jams and jellies started setting up again.
That is too funny.
I was back in business again.
Oh my goodness.
And so I'm excited to see where bacon jam's gonna lead us next.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So by the first of the year, it will be on Facebook. It will be posted. I'm writing recipes, so people will kind of have an idea, what can I use this with? How can I use this? And so I'm working on that right now too.
Wow.
And also trying to incorporate a lot of my other stuff too, like the candied jalapenos and making it with the bacon jam too. So that way you can pair up a bunch of stuff together.
So good.
So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where that's going to go.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's neat because now if you're working on something and it just isn't working out, because God does it, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
I keep closing that door until you get the hints.
Yep.
I'm just gonna...
You're not listening.
Oh my goodness.
He had to get my attention.
Yeah.
And he knew that, again, he knew that was the only way to do it.
That's so
because
funny.
if my jams and jellies kept setting and I would have just kept going.
Right.
And I would have put bacon jam on the back shelf.
Yep.
Because I was afraid of it.
Right, exactly.
It was too scary to walk into. I didn't think I could do it.
Right. It was the unknown.
Yes.
And, just like learning to make the jellies for the first time.
Yes.
And that's one of the things I love is when he calls us to trust him, even though it's scary.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what this is. How am I going to do this?
Yep.
I've never done this before. He's like, trust me, it's going to be okay. And once you start on that adventure, you find that joy. It's
yes.
like, okay. There's some trepidation going into it. I feel a little worried, but I know it's going to be okay.
Yes. Yes. So true. So
That's
true.
awesome.
Yep.
That's great.
He's just so wonderful.
He really is. And I'm thrilled to see all the work that you've done. I've enjoyed trying your jams and jellies.
Thank you.
They're fantastic.
Thank you so much.
And I am truly so blessed to know you. You are just a joy to talk to. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you
with
so
me and
much.
the listeners.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to do this and share my business on your platform. And I pray for you. I
Thank you.
wish nothing but the best for you. And I know if you just keep chasing after the one calling your name,
Right.
he's going to bring you there.